Welcome everyone to this Croatan Institute brief webinar launching our food and agriculture investment database. I'm Josh Humphreys, one of the co-founders of Croatan Institute, senior fellow director of our soil wealth program. I'm really delighted to be here today to walk you through this important new tool that the Institute is launching as part of our RAISER initiative, Research, Analytics, and Insights for Social and Environmental Returns. I'm joined today by several team members who have worked diligently on this project in the background. My colleague, James Smith, will be running the deck behind the scenes. And I'd like to also just go ahead at the outset here, give a shout out to the many team members who worked on this important initiative with me, including our executive director, Christy Electris, James himself, Jamie Silverstein, senior associate, other members of the RAISER team, including Katrina Lang and Anna Aspenson, and senior fellow Charlene Brown. And finally, Marielena Octavio, who worked on this initiative as part of her minor study while she was working on her MBA at the Duke Fuqua School of Business. So delighted to have Marielena's contributions to this as she's moved on to change the world at Vanguard. James, if you'd like to advance, just really quick background about the Institute. As many of you probably know, if you're joining us today, the Croatan Institute is an independent nonprofit research and action institute with a mission to build social equity and ecological resilience by leveraging finance to create pathways to a just economy. And one of the really key frameworks that we use to do this, and James, if you want to advance the slide, is a framework the founding team developed known as total portfolio activation, a framework for thinking about how to create social and environmental impact across investment asset classes. And we've been working for many years on the application of total portfolio activation to a variety of different social and environmental themes. And food and agriculture is one of the mainstays of the work that we do, particularly within the soil wealth program that I lead. So we have published a variety of different interventions to highlight the opportunities to invest in sustainable and regenerative food and agriculture across asset classes. We also think really seriously about the nature of what it means to have a total portfolio approach to this work. And James, if you advance to the next slide, it's a fine point that I frequently like to make, is that food and agriculture is not an asset class. And I know there are a variety of different initiatives out there to kind of redefine it as an asset class. At the Institute, we tend to view it differently through the total portfolio activation lens. Instead, food and agriculture is a theme in which you can invest across asset classes. And by asset classes, we really mean the very specific financial categories of instruments through which you can deploy capital. And what's novel about total portfolio activation is that we really think of asset classes differently from conventional finance. We don't define an asset class based on the narrowed definition that you'll find in modern portfolio theory, usually categorized by its historical risk return profile. Instead, we really think about the intrinsic social and environmental features and functions of an asset class. And when we do that in a theme like food and ag, we obviously think quite seriously about real assets. Farmland is an asset class within real assets, or a sub-asset class within real assets, because of its social function, ultimately to feed people, to clothe people, to grow the products that we need, really to advance as a civilization. And the same can be said for many of the other asset classes through which investment in food and ag as a theme can take place. And we know historically and etymologically that a lot of the categories that come from finance are actually rooted in just those basic social functions. In fixed income, we invest in bonds because they tie us together. We invest in equity because it's about shared ownership. And so we're reclaiming at the Institute, through our total portfolio activation framework, this intrinsic social and environmental function of asset classes, and providing a way to think how asset allocators, capital providers can actually use these asset classes to invest into the agricultural value chain, as this chart shows. So what we're releasing today, and James, if you want to advance, is a database that responds to a lot of the research that we often publish in glossy form, collaborative research that we've done on a variety of ways to think about problems, challenges, and opportunities to invest in a regenerative, organic, and sustainable agriculture, in food systems, in forestry and agroforestry, and in fiber systems. And the Institute has plenty of resources if you'd like to dive deeply into the ways in which we're filling gaps in this space. The next slide, please. And as I mentioned early on, the Food and Ag Investment Database is really a new product that we're releasing, a free product for the public good within our RAISER toolkit. RAISER is an acronym for Research Action Insights for Social and Environmental Returns, a way in which investors can get access to data that often is buried in our reports in a much more user-friendly way, an investor-friendly way. Recently, we launched a parallel racial equity investing data set around funds and advisors that are working on racial equity also across asset classes. And we'd invite you to take a look at that too. If we move on, James, we'd like to just give a quick preview of the investment database. If you go to croataninstitute.org/RAISER, you'll find an overview of that. And James is going to take us to what it looks like in real time. I think it's coming up. So if you go to croataninstitute.org/RAISER, you'll be taken to this page. And it provides a portal to get into the food and agriculture data set. And as James pulls that up, we'll clarify that this is really a fund database, not individual investments or securities. And what we wanted to do is just to quickly show you some of the functionality. So from the Croatan site, you can click the arrow in the top right of the widget, and it'll take you to a full screen presentation. This is actually housed at GitHub. And on the GitHub version of the site, you get a fuller visibility into this. So what we're going to do is just walk through a couple of different investable opportunities, and I should give the disclaimer that this is not meant to be a comprehensive database. It's a work in progress. We certainly welcome feedback from participants in the field if you see any errors or if you know of funds that are missing. But I think we can safely say that there's no other tool like this in the marketplace, and so we're delighted to make it available to the public. You will also find a basic organization here around funds and firms, products and firms. We're going to begin at the firm level, so you can, on the left-hand side in the menu, choose firms. And we're going to drill down into a specific asset class to filter this master set of funds and firms. And we're going to start with cash and equivalents, the most straightforward liquid asset class. And as you'll see, when you filter on that, you'll see a handful of banks and credit unions that provide opportunities to invest in highly liquid ways into food and agriculture. From an ESG perspective, or from a sustainable and regenerative perspective, which is another filtering category that you see thematically on the right. We're going to take a look at one product that gives a very direct exposure through Walden Mutual Bank, a New Hampshire-based regulated depository financial institution, an old-fashioned bank that is dedicated to working in the food and ag space. And one of the products that's spotlighted here is a certificate of deposit known as local impact CD. So you can see that. And when you go into the product, you actually have the opportunity to see why it's included from an asset class basis. This is an ESG oriented product as we've tagged it. Some basic information about the product, and then a link to, if appropriate. In this case, we're able to go straight to the product page, and you can get further information about the product. And again, this is not an investment recommendation or solicitation by any means. This is purely for educational purposes, as is all of our work at the Institute. Now, if we take a look at another asset class, you can also sort by products directly. You don't have to go from the firm side. And so we'll take a look at private debt next, just to give you an example. We would generally see cash, private debt, and private equity among the asset classes, and real assets, not private equity, real assets, where you get the most direct exposure to sustainable and regenerative food and ag opportunities. So in private debt, we'd like to highlight just an example, Rooted in Regeneration Notes. This is a private debt offering by Iroquois Valley Farmland REIT, which many of you may know of as a real asset strategy, as a farmland fund that invests directly in farmland, but it also does have a private debt offering that this database allows you to sort on and filter for. And what's interesting about this note is that it actually is cross-listed in our racial equity database. So again, if you click on the website, it takes you directly to the Rooted in Regeneration notes, where you can get more details about the investment offering. And in this particular case, you do have to be an accredited investor, but there are fact sheets and note guides related to the note. And then finally, we'll just take a quick look at real assets, since many of you think of investing in food and ag through the real asset class. Real estate farmland investment funds. And we'll just take a look at the top. Agriculture Capital has a current fund offering known as AC Carbon, where they're raising capital. Obviously, in real assets and farmland funds, often there are very strict investor solicitation and regulations related to advertising, and so you probably won't find very much. But the general website for Agriculture Capital is available, and if you're able to meet accredited investor guidelines, then you can contact the AgCap team, and they'll gladly provide further information. So I think we'll stop there. This is just meant to be a really quick overview of our food and ag investment database, the next phase of our Razor initiative. And so I just want to give thanks again to the team who've put a lot of time and effort into making this really user-friendly. It's a work in progress. We welcome feedback. If you'd like to learn more, go to croataninstitute.org/Razor. Contact the Soil Wealth team at soilwealth@croataninstitute.org. And if you'd like a bit more insight into what we're doing, then feel free to send an inquiry. We'd be glad to explore how we might be able to collaborate with you and your team to make this tool really useful, or to work on other initiatives. The Institute is a collaborative organization, and almost everything we do is rooted in partnership. So reach out to us, and we'd be delighted to explore opportunities to partner together on advancing the field of sustainable and regenerative food and agriculture, and to do so across asset classes. So thanks very much, everyone.